Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here. I am with Portal Instruments, and as mentioned earlier, we are working on developing a needle-free injector. Let me just get this going.
And you're coming to us from the Enterprise.
Indeed, because it is all about the Star Trek experience. So, I appreciate what John had to say about, designing to improve outcomes, designing to improve a competitive advantage, and looking to create something that's margin improving. I'm going to be talking about the patient experience of getting an injection and about how we're looking to improve that. And indeed, our value proposition absolutely is all about improving outcomes and making a competitive advantage for our partners. And what that also means is at the end, you make the patients happy and you build a better product, and it ultimately has to improve the margins as well. So strong believer in everything that John said. And Ben, you brought up the COVID vaccines and said, they have to be safe and efficacious, as well as the drug delivery devices that take them to market. And we also are very attuned to what's going on with that. And especially as an MIT spin-out, data and testing is of the utmost importance to us. And we've done numerous tests with many pharma partners regarding the viability of our device to be able to deliver mAbs, to be able to deliver proteins. So with that as a foundational given, I'm going to spend more time talking about, again, the patient experience and how we think it can achieve the things that John talked about, outcomes, advantage, and improving margins. But to start off, imagine that you are being told that you have diabetes and that you have to have an injection for the rest of your life. Or perhaps you have multiple sclerosis or IBD. Or perhaps you or your partner need IVF, and you need it not just once, but twice, 3 times, 4 times. Or perhaps you're a parent and you know the scenario of having to go to the pediatrician where your kid hates getting shots. And not just doesn't like them, but hates it. And it becomes a very long ordeal that many years you skip because you just can't deal with it. Well, Portal Instruments, we are looking to develop a needle-free injector that will improve, if not make go away, those experiences. We're an MIT spin-out. We're based in Cambridge, Mass. And our purpose is to enhance the value of the medication that is being given by creating a better experience. So as background, more and more drugs, especially biologic drugs, are being developed which require an injection. And they require on a regular basis, as we have seen for years and are seeing more with COVID. Healthcare is getting pushed to the home. So more of these therapies are getting pushed to home delivery. On the other hand, no one likes taking a shot. And there are cases, and we'll go over some of the data, that patients will often delay these treatments or outright refuse them because of that burden of having to take an injection. Portal's business model. Yeah.
I know you do have a poll. Do you want me to present it to the audience?
Oh, yeah, that would be great. And then I will look to those answers later. But if you could go ahead and share it, that'd be great.
So the poll is, ladies and gentlemen, how many of you fear taking a shot or know someone who hates getting shots taken? And there's 2 answers. I do. Personally, I do. I know my entire team does. Sherry, Victor, Noah, and Luke. And yeah, I see the responses coming. We'll give them all another 10 seconds or so. Okay, 5 seconds. And we'll show. Alrighty, so I'm just going to end the poll now and let's share the results. Here you go. So it looks like Barb, 61% of our audience fears taking the shot.
That's great. And that is actually higher than other research we've had. So sounds like many can relate to what we're talking about here. Portal's business model is to partner with pharmaceutical companies, and we partner with pharma companies so that they can put their drug into our cartridge. And this is a proprietary cartridge that we've developed, but it fits into a standard pharmaceutical fill line. So they put their drug into our cartridge. Here is our injector. This is reusable. This is disposable. The pharma company will then file with the FDA as a combination product, and then they will handle marketing and distribution. So I'll give a demo. This is our device. We are manufacturing, up and running, preparing for more clinical trials. And this is always the most nerve-wracking part of a presentation, is will the demo prototype work? So this is filled with saline. That pops open. So our device has a computer in here, numerous controls and sensors. So it will do many adjustments to the injection profile during the half second that it takes to eject out. But you'll see the cartridge is in. This indicates that it's ready to be placed against the body. This normally goes against the abdomen or the thigh. When it's placed against the thigh or the abdomen in the right place, this will light up. And if it's not placed, that goes away. This is a demo, so software, so that safety feature has been removed. So I'm going to double tap this. I'll tap it again, and then it will spray out. 1, 2, 3. And there we go. So that was a 1 ml injection. That came out pretty fast, less than half a second. Normally it takes 10 to 15 seconds to do that with a needle and syringe. So back to some context of the market. 1 in 2 Americans suffer from a chronic disease. About half of them don't take their medication as prescribed. And why not? Well, adherence is a complicated issue. And you hear, we've seen reasons such as I forgot, I don't want to, it's difficult, I'm not that sick, I hate the needles, I hate injections. So it is a many reasons for why, and it's not easily solved, but certainly drug delivery is part of it. And adherence is something that does indeed cost the healthcare system quite a bit, and certainly not good for the patient. Because if you don't take your drug, you won't receive those benefits. On the other hand, it's estimated that about 16 billion injections per year are given. We see about 20 million bloodborne pathogen infections, over 1 million deaths, and this data is pretty old. It's coming from 1999. So indeed, needles themselves, needle and syringes, 150-year-old technology. We certainly thought it was very ripe for disruption. And like we just heard, 60% of you don't like taking shots or know someone who has. So there is a desire for something better. What you said is backed up with other research. Needle phobia, which is a real phobia, is estimated to be about 10% of the population. Needle fear, much more difficult to estimate. University of Michigan study put it at 20 to 30% for young adults, 50% for adolescents. Here we heard that at least 60% of people experience it or know someone. So everyone has a story about taking injections and not liking it. And certainly, as the marketing lead at Portal, I get emails on a weekly basis from patients with all kind of disease indications and from all over the world telling their stories about how difficult it is and how they cannot wait for us to get onto the market. Like I said, we're an MIT spin-out, so we love data. We've done a lot of market research as well as testing in our labs. We sponsored a market research study that asked nearly 600 patients that had Parkinson's, atopic dermatitis, or multiple sclerosis about their fears and how they felt about needles. And so to start off, what are their biggest fears? After choking, vomiting, heights, and storms came needles and injections. Of those patients, 30 to 40% had a visceral reaction. And 24% of them, a quarter of them, avoided the situation of giving an injection. So going back to adherence, going back to outcomes, going back about the decision to go on a treatment, on the best clinical treatment for you, 24% of these patients would like to avoid that situation. Even when patients do go on an injectable and they get over taking the shot, it just remains a challenge. And this has come up in that market research survey, but just about every survey we've ever done. It's difficult to use. It's painful, but there's more than the pain. It's the anxiety, the anticipation of it, difficult to travel with, and certainly challenging to dispose of used needles. So since I've been at Portal, I am acutely aware of what sharp containers are and where they are. And I noticed this recently, a couple years ago when I was in Yellowstone. So middle of Wyoming, huge national park, takes, at least an hour, sometimes two, to get from one lodge to the other. And so I noticed when we were taking a bathroom break in one lodge that this was full. What do you do then? You wrap it up in your purse and carry it around for a couple hours? And what happens if in other places at an airport? And so that kind of uncomfortable feeling of needles and if they're just lying around is the common feeling. It's a different market research study we did where patients talked about, just this uncomfort, this stigma, the perceived stigma, and especially when it comes to children or grandchildren, is a lot of what is a bigger issue more so than the needle, than the injection itself, but that stigma and perceived stigma. So this is really the foundation of what our founder said. What if we transform the way injections are done? Needle-free has been talked about for a long time since Star Trek. How can we make this a reality? Well, they did. We did. Here we are 6 years later, again, with our injector. It's connected. We have the computer in it so we can share the information on when the injection was taken, if it was complete or not. We've built a companion app for it and built a connected cloud system. And like I said, this is a reusable device. And then the cartridge is disposable, one-time use. So I often give a talk, and at the end, people are like, well, where's the needle? I'm like, it's a needle-free injection. So how does it work? Well, by creating enough pressure and pushing our drug through a very small nozzle, the medication itself can pierce the skin. So our jet stream's about the size of a strand of hair, we say, slightly smaller than a standard needle. And again, it can complete the injection in less than half a second. In contrast to a needle and syringe with a 1 ml injection, that often takes 10 to 15 seconds. So you just, 10 seconds isn't that long, but think about having a needle in your abdomen and having to plunge it for 10 seconds, for 15 seconds. Very different experience. We've taken our devices both to patients and to healthcare providers and asked them what they thought. Certainly some disbelief, but overall excited, interested, and like I see often in those emails, hopeful that this will come to market soon. When we asked those 600 patients what they thought of it, vast majority, 80%, said they were highly likely to try this. And in a large majority, 64% overall, said they were even willing to switch medication. So imagine you're a pharma company and you have a new drug delivery device, and patients, 64% are willing to switch to your device for that feature and that benefit. The other question we get is, how does it feel? Well, we've done numerous clinical trials where we will inject patients with a 1 ml syringe of saline, and then we will inject them with our device, syringe with a needle, and then do an injection with our device, also with 1 ml. So we use the patients as their own control. 1 ml with our device, 1 ml with a traditional needle and syringe. And then we have them compare experiences. We've done this with numerous prototypes all along the way. So the first prototypes, while clinical grade, weren't necessarily going to pass any human factor studies, all the way to our latest prototype. And along the way, patients have overwhelmingly said that they prefer our device. And certainly with our latest clinical trial and our latest device, the results are even better. So patients have said they like it, they're excited about it, they're willing to switch drugs for it. What do physicians say? So again, we went back to them and asked, well, how do you make the decisions? What would it take for you to prescribe our needle-free injector? And they, first and foremost, clinical efficacy. What is the right drug for this patient? Then they look at, no surprise, payment access. What will the person's patients pay for? And then they very much do look at ease of use. If all else is equal, can this patient handle taking an injectable at home? Or if not, should they be taking an infusion? Or if not, should they just stay in an oral, which might sacrifice some of the clinical benefits, but at least they'll take it and be adherent to it, or as much as you can hope that they would be adherent to. So ease of use, not often talked about, but certainly is part of that prescribing decision tree. So how much competition is there in biologics? Well, quite a bit. In fact, many biologics have their patents looking to expire. That's a list that expired in 2011. So I know every pharma company knows when that's happening. And certainly in many indications, there is quite a bit of competition. So again, going back to the need to differentiate. Does having an injectable make a difference? Well, there was a survey done by Leerlink of 59 cardiologists, and using an injectable did come up as one of the top reasons why doctors did not prescribe the PCSK9. And certainly we look at rheumatoid arthritis. This is a great example of a crowded field. There are many treatment options. And if you look at the drug delivery devices available, dare I say, the auto-injectors and the pre-filled syringes all look quite the same, or at least look quite the same when you compare it to our injector, which is drastically different. I'm going to switch gears for a second here and talk more about digital health and the aspects of telehealth. I mean, even before COVID, we certainly saw this convergence of consumer tech and med tech, and the growing patient, not only acceptance, but expectation around having connectivity in their devices. There's also this expectation that, you know, your medical device should be as friendly as all your tech devices are. So we've spent a lot of time, most definitely, making sure that it's user-friendly, that it meets the expectation of a next generation electromechanical wellness device that will be simple and easy to use. We've built out a cloud system that can then connect to, again, patient management tools that can connect to the payers that can connect to the pharmaceutical companies. And so it's a standard cloud structure. We can connect and do quite a bit with those analytics. I quite often show the app that we've built, and it's fun, it's tangible, and somewhat sexy. But I really think that the value of the data goes well beyond the app. Certainly that's great for the patient, but we can also gather analytics on adherence. When do certain demographics start to drop off? Well, how can that improve the medical education outreach? Or looking at other demographics, is there more education needed for doctors in this area or region? How can that improve the patient services program, the hub services and outreach programs? And then on a micro level, how can we tie into the doctor systems and give them the tools that they need in their office so that they can keep the patient at home and do outreach remotely and come up with the best course of treatment and plan. So in the end, you know, to simplify everything that I've talked about, even with proven technologies, there are certainly opportunities for improvement. Listen to your patients, don't minimize their angst. And we heard that a lot in the early days. Patients learn to get over it. Patients learn to get over it. Sure, maybe, but 24% are still avoiding it. How many aren't going on it because they just don't want to deal with it? And certainly, as I said in the beginning, providing a better patient experience can indeed be a winning differentiator. And winning for the patients, better experience. They'll take their drugs, that'll help adherence. We'll give them the technical tools that help adherence. That'll improve outcomes. That'll be a winning combination for the pharma companies. And of course, that should all lead to better margins. So thank you.
Thank you very
Excellent.
much. We do have a couple questions from the audience. The first one being, does it work with all drugs? What are the limitations, if any?
Sure. So we have no reason to believe that it won't work with all drugs, but we do have, you know, a rigorous testing process that we go through. So again, the drug goes into our cartridge. You know, I'm going to turn off this background if I can. But the drug goes into our cartridge, and then we go through compatibility testing with the plastics. We do numerous tests. We look to see if the molecule's not shared. So there's a very defined process that will answer all those questions.
Wonderful. And there was a couple requests from the audience, like you mentioned with the background effect. You could just do a quick demonstration again.
Oh, sure. Let me, hang on one second. Let me see if I can turn off this background here. All right, so here is the cartridge. This cartridge can hold about 1 ml of drug. Here is the injector. Turn on the power button. It goes through a self-check. The door will open. Cartridge goes in. After it's ready for injection, this will light up, and that indicates that it should be put on the body location, so abdomen or thigh. When that is placed correctly, this light comes up and says, ready to inject. I'm going to bypass that. And then 1, 2, 3. It ejects less than a second, less than half a second. This comes out, that goes in the trash, and then it turns off.
Amazing, brilliant. Amazing. Yep. And I can see Gerald and Arjun were just asking that. So wonderful. Thank you again, Barbara. And for those that are interested in learning more about Portal Instruments and connecting with Barbara and her team, you can let us know, and we can definitely do that introduction for you.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara.
Thanks.
That was That was great. I think we as a cohort of medical device gurus are a non-representative population of people who largely aren't afraid of injections because of our professional experience. And so I think, maybe we don't represent the public at large in this regard, but I thought that was fantastic. And I feel like it's a technology that, even though maybe I only need an injection for a seasonal influenza vaccine every year, I feel like I need to have one of these sitting on my shelf at home. So mission accomplished.
Hopefully not, but if that day comes, we hope that you do choose our injector. And ultimately, we'd love to see this in every physician's office as well as in the home.
Well, yeah, and as you mentioned too, it's interesting because I had worked in the past on some auto injectors, and the technology is such that you mentioned a few times about the compliance / adherence with patients. And some of the auto injectors, the idea was to gamify the technology to the extent that patients would think more and more about using their drug delivery technology, and so they would want to engage with it. And I think that's interesting, because on one hand, you might ask the question, well, why would I want to do that? I'd rather not have any medications. But I think, if the technology is interesting enough and it's something that's unavoidable to need to use it for self-medication, let's say, then having it be as user-friendly and interesting and engaging as possible is a win-win.
I mean, we certainly believe that too. There's, the steps are seemingly small to have to take an injection, but you get your drug out of the fridge, you wait 30 minutes for it to warm up, it takes 15 seconds to plunge it, and that is on top of your psych up period. Okay, I'm going to do this today, which is what we hear from a lot of patients, that it takes them, they spend some time meditating or whatnot to prepare for it. So if we can completely change that experience, you can take it straight from the fridge, get it done in less than 5 minutes, and move on with your day. I mean, I think that's ultimately it, to make it not an experience, to just get it done and move on. But meanwhile, so that means completely disrupting it.